Well, William Blake, thanks so much for coming on WMNF. First, tell us what group you represent and what's happening on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm with Tampa Bay Community Action Committee. We're a student, or sorry, not student, but we're just a community activist group here in Tampa. We fight for justice for victims of police brutality, such as Josiah Pinner, who was hit and killed by an HCSO officer that didn't see any punishment. Also, Jonas Joseph, who was recently killed back in April of 2020. And it was essentially a complete frame up or a cover up, excuse me, by TPD. They first said that he shot at them. Then it came out that he never shot at all. And it was rather just more of an execution. It was like hunting him down and executing him. So that's sort of the stuff that we organize around. But right now, and maybe people have noticed in the news or in the past couple months, Governor DeSantis introduced two pieces of legislation. It's something along the lines of opposing riots and protecting police or law enforcement act. And it is the Senate Bill 484 and House Bill 1. And they're both being heard right now. House Bill 1 is just yesterday was going through a certain committee. It unfortunately passed. The committee was dominated by Republicans, and I believe all Republicans voted yes and all Democrats voted no. So yeah, recently we've been organizing around specifically that, and what those pieces of legislation or proposed legislation essentially do. They apply RICO laws, which is obviously something that was used against mafia leaders and mob bosses and everything, against organizers of protests. They say that if you have over 9 people in a protest, it can be deemed at any point to be a riotous act and to be dispersed immediately. Furthermore, it provides a pretty easy legal justification to run over protesters if they're in the middle of the road, which obviously was a really big problem over the summer over the Justice for George Floyd movement. It also, another very important one is that if local cities around the state of Florida choose to defund their police or at least lower the budget of the police, the governor can override it and can remove any sort of state benefits to that local municipality. So it's essentially it's a huge effort to combat any of the movement or any of the movement over justice for George Floyd and police accountability. It's also another part of the movement. We're also fighting against the Law Enforcement Officer Bill of Rights, which is something that only the state of Florida and I believe a few other states have a specific Bill of Rights that is only applied to law enforcement officers, and essentially it allows them to a whole host of rights that us normal citizens don't get. And that is to, I believe they don't even have to be subpoenaed. They can, or if they do not wish to, they can decline to be interviewed for 72 hours if it's a result of or if there is some sort of shooting. And at that point they're meeting with other police officers and unfortunately they're union representatives so they can get their story straight. But the reality is that normal citizens don't have any of these protections, and law enforcement officers unfortunately do, and it allows them to potentially cover up things, as we saw from Jonas Joseph, which I implore anyone who's listening or who is going to listen to this, please look up the case of Jonas Joseph. It was very unfortunately swept under the rug by TPD, but it's very interesting what happened exactly. But back to your question, sorry about that. We're having an event, Tampa Bay Community Action Committee, we're having an event on this Saturday I believe at 1 p.m. Yeah, 1 p.m. In front of the TPD in downtown, Tampa Police Department in downtown, right next to Lykes Gaslight Park. And yeah, it's also, we're doing it also with a bunch of other groups around Florida. We're part of the Florida Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. And it's essentially just a big effort to oppose these bills, because what uh, these bills will essentially criminalize a whole lot of protesting and essentially suppressing free speech. So that's the unfortunate reality, and that's what we're trying to fight against right now.